Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Club Baroness. This is episode 5, and we'll be covering round 3 of the Swiss tournament, a recap, and making predictions for round 4. Tonight, I have with me Evolution,
Hey everyone.
Mirage,
How's everyone doing?
and Nathan Zero.
What's going on, guys?
We should have Jay rejoining us here shortly. He seemed to have a technical connection issue. He should be with us here shortly, but we'll go ahead and start with the round 3 matchups here. We're beginning with the first match, Daffy Duck and Filthy versus Evolution and Sandal. If you want to take that one away for me there, Mirage.
Yeah. So, Filthy Ducks versus Sandal and Evolution both came in 1-1. They actually both lost to Bregan in their respective losses. It was a pretty quick match. It was 3-0, but it was definitely well fought. City saw a memory lapse from Sandal and Evolution, but Evolution and Sandal took a lot of damage, but there was a +4 re-in that was almost impossible to cartwheel there at the end. That ended up winning it for them, for Sandal and Evolution. In Pano, it looks like Filthy and Daffy got a kill or two on Sandal, but the swords and reincarnation were definitely flying in that match. It was surprising we didn't see a whole lot of Ricochet in this match, actually, on Pano, which was kind of crazy. There was a nice pickup by Daffy near the end, but Fire Gehenna and Flame Sword ended up finishing it off. And then their last map was actually Highway, which was pretty good. Super quick vibration setup with 2 quantum amps, and then it was just chaotic after that.
I think there were some really impressive quick setups out of them in this series. Nathan, did you get a chance to see this series too yourself?
You're talking about Daffy and Filthy. I did see it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have much to add. I actually think that was a really good breakdown. It was a sweep, but all of the games, felt winnable watching them. I thought I didn't think there was anything that was like a complete roll. And then that's not uncommon. I mean, we're in the third round of Swiss here, so we would expect that the matches should be somewhat even. I don't think the outcome was a huge surprise, right? I mean, I feel like that was the prediction I would have made. I'm not sure what the call was in the last podcast, but
I think that's more or less the direction most people saw it going in the last podcast, but I don't have 100% recall on that. Does anybody have anything they like to add to that match?
I think it was funny at the end. There was that 4 health point standoff, and they decided both to go get pickups and trade pickups, but there was just too far of a pickup, I think, at the end for Filthy to get to Daffy.
Yeah, I think it's been fun watching them. We've talked a lot about, the mad scientists of the two here with the Dirty Minds. We saw them run a really dirty combo with that memory lapse and that, but they've been playing a little bit more straight up than I think one would have expected. And Sandals had some of the good builds, but I've also been impressed just with how well they've been working together. Evolution seems to have really good target selection. And for example, even in round 2 when they played us, it was impressive watching how well they kept their ranges and were able to keep us kind of hemmed in. And so that's one thing I've really been impressed with, is how well they seem to have been working together lately.
Yeah, it was definitely nice to see.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one then, which is War Machine and Darcia versus Nathan and the Wolf. That series started out on Panorama. You want to take this one away for us, Evolution?
I actually missed that one. I'm gonna take care of the next one if you don't mind.
Okay, I'll handle this one then. So this was one that we watched from Darcia's perspective, and they're a team that's been, pretty punchy. They've been working their way around the lower half of the brackets, fighting pretty hard. They picked up a win versus Affin and Orange Baby last round, and it was a pretty tough matchup for them against Nathan and the Wolf. But we saw them, hit pretty hard with some of the erase. I know Nathan commented to me afterwards that they weren't expecting the level of erase that they ran into. There was the hung reduce entropy. Was that on Palace, Nathan?
Yeah.
Yeah, the hung reduce entropy on Palace was well played, and then they ran. I think it was the violent change combo against you guys on sign too.
Yeah, on the clincher, they came back with violent change on sign, which I think is now the fourth time we've seen a team try to violent change, and I believe it is 0-3. Right, we have not yet seen a team win, and there's been success. They actually took me to 0 with a good amount of health left, and we were only barely able to squeeze out a win there. It's always interesting. I feel as though sometimes with the violent change combo, it's that classic best laid plans thing where things are going well and you've got a good rotation going. You're taking the items down to the 15-second mark. Not that they had a lot of work to do with me. I actually burned through my items myself pretty quickly just from the array shields I was hitting. But there's a tendency, I think, in this game for like hyper aggression to be rewarded. And I think it's one of those things that can be hard for like middle range teams like mine to pick up on that. And that sometimes when you activate that hyper aggression via something like violent change or vicious balance or something that just forces teams to come at you hard, things can go downhill real quickly, even if it's looking like it's under control up until the moment where you kind of trigger that response. And I felt very much as though that was what happened in that sign game. It was a solid series. I mean, we beat them up pretty good on Panorama where we started. But they came right back and gave us a brutal battle in Highway. And then it was looking like we were going to close it out with a sweep in Palace until they hung that reduce entropy. I did see him coming down with it. It was a bad misplay on my part not to cut him off and take those boxes down. I mean, I could have done it with one swipe. And instead, I went in for a quick shot trying to knock down War Machine was in the corner there. And the truth is, even after that thing went down, it wasn't going to be a game ender for me, but it took the Wolf pretty much completely out. We didn't have any way to clear it. We didn't have a lot of anti-snark because, as you said, we weren't really expecting much. So it was a good series. Those guys, they put up a great fight. We hadn't really played them much, so we didn't know what we were walking into there.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun series to watch. I think everyone watching Nathan and Wolf get a nasty environmental hung on them has a little bit of that sick, twisted pleasure after all the times they used to do that to everyone else back in the day. So I think a lot of people probably enjoyed that. Does anybody have anything else they want to touch on that series? Mirage?
I mean, I feel like Nathan hit right on the head. Like as soon as they saw that what was coming with the violent change, and as soon as Nathan got popped out, like it was like super aggression. It definitely pushed them to obviously push hard right there. I'd like to go ahead and state that Madman and I were the first ones in the tournament to run violent change on the side.
You guys were the first ones, and then I've run it 3 times.
Yeah.
Both of them were on me, actually.
2 of 3 were on you. I ran it against Goat and Silent as well.
Well, Madman and Mirage ran it on me too.
Yeah.
Sandal and I.
Let's see. I guess out of the 5 times it's been run, 3 times against you.
Yep.
Not fun at all.
And how many times has it won? Does it have wins?
It has not. It has not won yet against Sandal and I.
I did win.
Well, not on sign though, is what we were discussing.
Oh, I didn't use it against you on sign. I used it on Refinery and on Panorama.
That's right. You used it on Gotrix on sign.
Yep. And that match never happened. We don't talk about that match.
I had them both popped out though. Evo and Liz popped out, and his partner popped out. And I still think I cartwheeled that sword, but I died to it.
Yeah. So I guess our next one would be Jay and Murder Mastodon versus Xanxus and Zexus. If you want to do this one, then Evolution.
Yeah, this one was a key match. This didn't quite eliminate a top team, but it might have brought the morale down for that loser, where they may not, perform to the best in their upcoming match. It started on lane, not a lot of jank. We saw everything pretty straightforward. It was a lot of back and forth, a lot of heavy hits. Murder and Jay took the win on lane to get the ball rolling, and then right to Palace, Sign. It's like it switched. It was just back and forth the whole time. Honestly, it was one of the highlight matches of all the videos I've watched so far this tournament. I really enjoyed that one.
That was
But
exciting
go ahead.
series.
Yep. But after a 5-game series, Xanxus and Zexus did end up taking it 3-2, and Murder and Jay have a hard fight for them to get back into this. So see what happens.
Yeah, could be a very tough road coming up. We'll talk a
So
little
does
bit
Xexus
more.
and Xanxus, though. I mean, frankly, I see them heading for a 2-2 finish here in Swiss.
Nathan throwing out the shade early before we talk about the round 4 matchups. Nathan will be facing Xanxus and Zexus in round 4. So, could be true. Or he could just be blowing smoke. You never know. Nathan Zero coming at you. So, I think I definitely really enjoyed the series. And we did see a big part of it was just the coordination between the two teams and the quickness of the setups. When Xanxus and Zexus had a slower start, they didn't do as well. But when they did get those lightning fast starts for which they are well known, we saw them perform in pretty brutal manner. But the series was really back and forth. It wasn't, at least not that I recall, any of the matches that was like super one-sided. Almost
No,
all of
you
them
just
were close.
You just saw a lot of solid mechanical play. The re-end fake outs with the lightning sword. I mean, that's classic Xanxus Zexus.
Yep. Although it's interesting, they do run for as much overlap as there is between their builds. Obviously, they're very tightly coordinated. They have a ton of puzzle slot decks together, but they really do run a wide variety of builds. Like they're not coming back with the same stuff game after game. They're coming back with some of the same elements in every deck, but it's the variety of like silver bullet arrays, and by which I just mean skills that nullify other types of jank and also their own jank, is surprisingly high, and I actually think among the highest in the tournament in terms of how wide a variety they bring. And also Zexus is a brutal cartwheeler and very, very tough to pin down in some cases.
Yeah, they're both quite good.
Yeah,
very,
they can both
very
play.
tough to pin down.
And it changes all the time. Some matches I watch, and I'm like, man, Xanxus really pulled through on that one. He kicked butt. And then other matches, I'm like, man, Zexus killed it. What the hell? So they're both a double threat. And
they are. But I'll say this: when Xanxus blows me away, it's usually with an out of nowhere big offensive combo. When Zexus blows me away, it's with unreal corpse recoveries, like taking no damage at all in situations that look hopeless. So I do feel like they bring very different elements to the game. There is a lot of it's not like a what's the word I'm looking for? They're not coming with the same tools. They're coming, it's very much a jumper and cartwheeler team to an extent that I don't know that any other team in the tournament is.
They're double cartwheelers.
Yeah.
Not always. No, Xanxus sometimes comes as jumper.
He has been
that's
now.
this tournament.
That's kind of new, and I don't think he played a jumper in any of the matches versus Jay and Murder.
Yeah. Was he on a cartwheeler during that whole series?
I believe so. I'm checking lane and sign. Let's see. We'll go to on Palace. Yes.
Yeah, he did. Because the last match
Highway,
sign against
yes.
Gagnon, he switched to cartwheeler, and then he stayed as a cartwheeler against Murder and Jay.
Looks like he
Gotcha.
did play a jumper on Panorama. So one match has a jumper out of 5.
Right.
Now, it's interesting to note, a little fun fact, I don't know if you guys are aware, Zexus, back in the days of old, was a jumper, whereas Xanxus was a cartwheeler. But here in the reboot, Xanxus is the one who is playing around with the jumper.
Huh.
Interesting.
Well, having made that transition myself recently, I can speak to it not being a smooth transition. It definitely is difficult to get used to it again. And I actually find it quite difficult sometimes going back and forth. Going back to cartwheeler, I find myself, it's not the timing so much as just the awareness of the space I need to retain to be able to get out of the way of certain skills. Like as a cartwheeler, you're much more conscious of like how much lateral space you're giving yourself. And
I can attest to that too, because I switch quite often as well, if you guys have noticed.
Yeah, so that sometimes that gear shift can be a little bit tricky depending on the level, particularly on places like sign where like it's not always clear how much lateral space you have in a given moment with the level falling away.
See, now I have an opportunity to ask a question. Nathan, you primary as a cartwheeler, whereas I primary as a jumper. What I find difficult when I switch to a cartwheeler sometimes is it's hard to explain. Not so much the timing, like you said, nor is it really the situational awareness around me, but I find it difficult to know which way to cartwheel. Sometimes I find myself cartwheeling right into another person's attack. Whereas I watch a lot of primary cartwheelers, they don't do that. And I've been trying to change it, and I'm struggling with it.
Yeah, I mean,
think it's more of a panic
with
mode.
melee attacks, the key is to not be in a straight line mostly. With missile attacks, things like reincarnation that have pretty good tracking, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but you kind of want to cartwheel in at about like an 80-degree angle.
Well,
to the
I wasn't asking for you to. I was asking what do you find difficult as a cartwheeler?
Oh, going to jumper?
Yes.
Not much. I mean, playing as a jumper, the levels all feel smaller, right? Because it's so much easier to get around. I mean, particularly in places like Highway and Palace, where it just opens up whole other avenues of movement that are just not available to you as a cartwheeler, going over little ledges and things. As far as the dodging goes, I'm pretty good on the really easy stuff like Will-O-Wisp and so the blasters, for example, where you know exactly what the timing is. I find some of the slightly faster moving, high tracking things like reincarnation tougher to deal with, particularly if they're coming from above. But I mean, everyone knows that those are a little tougher to deal with.
Right.
But I mean, I guess that the big thing is that you, as a jumper, unlike with the cartwheeler, where you just want to make sure you've got the space to make the move you want to make. So it's a matter of like staying out in the open a little bit as a defensive measure. With a jumper, it's actually quite the opposite. You're kind of always looking. You're almost like playing hide and seek a little bit, where you're constantly thinking about what is the nearest like obstruction thing I can get behind if something like if Gehenna comes at me in a moment.
Very true.
So that's more of the thing. It switches from being I'm just going to be out in the open and deal with it type of thing. It's a much more brazen style as a cartwheeler, and as a jumper, it's a much more like kind of dodgy. What can I get behind so that I can have an advantage in this engage type of play. And so that is a tough adjustment to make, because I want to be aggressive most of the time, and you definitely have to pull back on the reins. And of course, the other thing is you just need to load more defense. You have to carry more defense as a jumper. I go from like 2 as a cartwheeler to like 4 or 5 as a jumper in most of my builds.
Yeah.
That definitely, like, I've recently made the change to cartwheeler from jumper, and I feel like I'm definitely avoiding more things. But I think that comes down to me not necessarily playing the amount of matches that like you might play, Nathan. And so my timing to jump blasters or Willow wasn't there. So for me to switch to cartwheeler, I think cartwheeler is definitely, OP when it comes to avoiding things and getting around things that jumpers can get around, like if you have the skill and the timing down. But for like somebody that doesn't play that much, or maybe newer players that are coming into the game that we see coming into the community, like we might see more cartwheelers because of that.
Yeah.
For me, I noticed dodging as a cartwheeler is visual, whereas more times than not, as a jumper, I've made most of my dodges by sound. I can hear a fire coming, and I'm automatically looking for that nearest pole to get behind.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of want to open it into a little bit bigger topic too, because we're watching a lot of these top tier cartwheelers specifically in this tournament switching to jumper, and there's 3 really notables. Maybe there's another one that I might be forgetting, but Guinan, Nathan, and we've seen Xanxus playing a little bit of both as well. And I just want to kind of see everybody's thoughts on the success of that transition, or rather if you think it would be better if they had stuck with the cartwheeling.
So
Nathan, the only man to get hit with jackpot as a jumper as many times as a cartwheeler.
I'll say this: you can't see me in that. 2 of the 3 times that I got hit is me mistiming a dark hole. If you watch it, you can actually see my health go down 1 right before the jackpot hits.
Fair enough.
Failing to get the jackpot. So 2 of those were mistimed jackpots. And the third one was one of those situations where the wolf was coming up a ramp at me. So it was that weird thing where there's like an incline and the timing changes a little bit. You know what I'm talking about when you have like 2 jackpots overlapping and they're not quite the same time anymore?
Yeah, I know what you mean on that one.
I think I have a tendency to jump jackpot a little bit early. That's just one of those things I need to get in my bones. But yeah, I was definitely frustrated with that match.
I think we've definitely seen the change to try to avoid hanging, obviously. And like, especially with those dual cartwheeling teams, we've seen one person switch to jumper to try to avoid the hanging. I think, though, in a lot of those matches where we've seen them do that, we haven't seen a lot of hangs. So, like, I think it's probably a detriment to them because it's not their main or what they normally do as a cartwheeler or a jumper. But I think that they are planning and smartly planning for a hang against teams that may know that they're typically both wheelers.
Even in the absence of a hang, I mean, clearly, there's no doubt in my mind that I'm a more dangerous player as a cartwheeler than as a jumper. Like, I'm certain of it. One-on-one, I know that I survive better without it, and I know that the builds that I use as a cartwheeler are more time-tested and balanced. However, I also feel very confident. Yeah, I also feel very confident that Wolf and I are a stronger team with me on a jumper, and that's not just because people come with these anti-roller builds now, but I just think that it opens up some avenues and it allows us to make clear, strong decisions when we're trying to do, for instance, a corpse defense, which comes up quite frequently, and we kind of know that like I'm going to be able to get over barriers, so maybe it's better for me to take the point on a move. You know what I mean? Like it does open up some avenues that even though I may feel individually not quite as strong, it actually does strengthen the team and give us some more well-rounded options. And like I'm only going to get better. I mean, I actually do think that it's one of those things that there will come a point where I'll be able to dodge Blazing Bullet as a jumper one day.
It's all about
like you said, it shrinks the map
and waiting.
Yeah.
I've been just watching the Murder Mastodon laying a boost mine underneath the bridge on Palace again. I'm sorry. It hurt to watch.
Yeah.
But one thing I've noticed, because I feel like there are good things and bad things about this, where we've had some of these cartwheelers switching to jumpers, and maybe some of these negatives will, smooth out a little bit more over time. But one of the things I've noticed, and I've seen in especially Xanxus and in Guinan, is we often make fun of Guinan for his Fortress of Arrogance, as it's often called. But we see it in almost all of these people that are switching from cartwheeler to jumper, where they kind of have this thing where cartwheelers tend to stand still a little bit more, I've noticed. Almost like they're just kind of like daring you to throw a move and then they dodge it effortlessly. And I notice a lot of these players that have switched to jumpers from longtime cartwheelers doing this kind of like they're standing still a little bit too much, and they eat extra attacks for it. Like, keep your eyes on the recent Guinan series, and anytime you see Xanxus play a jumper, like I see them stand still way more than they should.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never stand still. You will never see me stationary in any game.
See that I was just gonna bring that up. As a cartwheeler, I used to notice it all the time with Gagnon. A lot of players, when they're waiting for their capsules to spawn, they don't even realize they're doing it, but they run in circles in their spawn. You guys ever notice that? Just circling their capsules. Yeah. You watch Gagnon; he just stands there the whole time. Just stands there.
That's funny.
It's kind of a cartwheeler thing, like they know they can get away with it.
I guess I would actually argue that in Gagnon's case, he's an extremely cerebral player who is formulating quite a bit and coming up with ideas. I mean, I think that we've all observed the fact that when you hear his his like dialogue thread stream in a stream, he is like preternaturally calm and like composed.
No, this isn't meant to be like a criticism of Guinan.
No, it wasn't.
That cartwheelers.
No, I'm not taking it that way. I'm saying that I think that could be sort of a manifestation of that. Like he's spending energy processing.
My point of it was he's more patient than others.
Yeah.
About the standing still, waiting on the capsules. You see all these non-patient players just waiting to get that move they need and take off running, and he just sits there, patiently waits.
Yep.
Well, and I have to wonder too,
And
like, does being a cartwheeler enable having that kind of patience? Is that harder to do as a jumper?
well, as a jumper, you're constantly on that L trigger back and forth, switching between opponents to see who's doing what. But I know when I switch to a cartwheeler, I don't do that as much. I kind of I don't target lock at all. I kind of pan the view to see the entire map.
Oh, interesting. So you're not even targeted all the time. I will say
No.
one big adjustment I've made switching back to cartwheeler when I do is I find myself much more actively knocking down ledges that can be taken down. I do it on highway. I do it on palace. Like if I have the opportunity to take out some of those little, chest high barriers, I'm taking them right down, just because I want them back. Now that I've had access to them, it's like the forbidden fruit. Like now that I've tasted being able to jump off anywhere I want on that top area of palace, I want that all the time. And so I've, in a way that I never used to do, will just use bullet of fire or something and just knock out a bunch of ledges to make sure I can drop down and get to the guy below me.
Yeah, I've done that. I've noticed myself doing that more and often. Now that I'm, like you said, now that when you switch your cartwheeler, like I've definitely seen myself do that, like flame sword ledges that I would leave there before.
See, and that to me is a weakness, because then you're showing your opponent, okay, I need that flash hole now, or I need that glacial wall or fortress of iron. I don't know.
I won't typically do it until after they've already have that information. Like I'm not gonna start the match with like clearing out my spawns rails before they know what I'm carrying.
You will see players do it though.
Yeah, that's true. It is information. God, there's nothing worse than getting baited into revealing your defense. I hate that. Do we want to move on to the next series?
Yeah.
What is the next series?
We have we bogged down a little bit there, but I think that was a meaningful discussion. I think that was good.
Yeah.
So our next series is Savage Sim and Ebony Scarface versus Madman and Mirage. I think this.
And that one's me.
Yeah, that one was also you, Nathan.
Great, because this was actually my favorite series in the round. Madman and Mirage have been 2 and 3 in all of their series, including this one. They lost this in a tight match. I don't know much about Ebony and Savage. I've played each of them a bit, and I mean outside of the tournament, like I don't know much about them. And I do, of course, know Madman and to a lesser degree Mirage, and so I came into this assuming that what we were going to be seeing here is pretty evenly matched players, but like more coordination out of Madman and Mirage, and I think we saw exactly that in Palace. They came with a lot of good straight ahead, combat skills, blasters, used really strong positioning, keep themselves kind of perpendicular on their targets, and won authoritatively. And it looked to me like at that point they were going to win the series. Of course, Highway, it kind of goes the other way. And I couldn't tell whether that was Ebony and Sim warming up or if there was like a breakdown in Madman and Mirage. Intuitively, it felt to me like they got to a point where they were feeling, solid and decent positionally and just pulled back on the pressure, just weren't like staying on. It didn't keep like the pedal down to really shut them out. And so the series ended up even there. And of course, starting on Palace and going forward, they're playing kind of in the old traditional path of Palace, Highway, Panorama, etc. I loved the Panorama game because who was our view guy? Was that Madman?
Yeah.
Or was it Mirage?
Madman.
So Madman brings this like classic old school zero cost faith build that I just love. I haven't seen one of these things. I don't feel like I've played one in like 5 months. And it's a tough build to make good use of. So this is like trance, agonies of death, screams of evil, lingering flame is kind of a stock skill. And then rebirths to get some health back. So he's really just like sacrificing himself, throwing himself away, but like kicking a lot of high pressure attacks through walls. Ebony and Sim did a good job of dodging that stuff. And in fact, Madman was a little bit like edged out of the game. He took that desperation shot at the very end where he tried to trance down, using Scream of Evil. I think it was Sim running for a recovery in the front. He had 3 hit points exactly, so he tried to take him down there. But they did end up winning that game as well, which was great to see. Because like I said, I just think that's a cool build that makes me happy. City, I like the spawns that they have. Like that's kind of my favorite way, like my favorite configuration of the game for Mirage and Madman. And again, in the beginning, it was like they had all the momentum. It felt a little bit like Highway, and they were running the board, and then things just turned real hard. They were on similar kind of builds like they used in Palace, and they were doing some of the same kind of like perpendicular attack that they were using there in terms of just like getting lined up so they could each take shots at people. But once Mirage went down, low in the pit, and then that horrible drop off the that whatever we call that little bridge across to where Mirage's spawn is, that game was just in the can. And I don't think Madman had any defense at that point either. So it was a frustrating series to watch because I felt like they generally outplayed them and then just kind of blundered at the very end. And then that crazy refinery game that was so good. And I've watched it like 3 times now, that whole game start to finish, because I don't understand some of what was happening. Madman obviously got just about completely wiped out of his items. And here again, we see, we see pressure on Capsules, which has had limited success in this tournament as a rule. He has all these bundled blasters, and of all things, Ebony and Savage come doubled up on heavy defense arrays, right? So using all these erase defenses and just taking down systematically everything that gets fired at them. And Madman, I guess, because he had been floating around his base and seeing that he only had the 2 capsules left for at least like 2 trips by, makes the decision to go ahead and pick up that final bundled blaster, I guess, to go in at least to take down a shield. And man, was that it just was so frustrating to watch, because I kept thinking to myself, like, they're at like a minute 40 when he does that, I think. And he's swinging out along the catwalk on his final respawn. I think he came back at 5 at that point. And he had a shot. He could have taken a shot there. I don't remember which one, whether it was Ebony or Savage, and at least taken down one more shield as like a final, shot from the grave, so to speak. And he just didn't take the shot. He just ran all the way to the end of the catwalk and then just fell flat on his face. And then Mirage, instead of running the clock out, courageously attempted a 2v1 to take them down. And one of the 2 of them, I think maybe Savage, one of the 2 had no offense left anymore, was just running around with a race defense. So, on the one hand, he only really had one person to worry about. But on the other hand, he also had a terrible target who was probably sitting on 2 erase defenses, was going to be able to shut him off anyway. So it was very, very frustrating that game didn't go to tie and, result in a lane clincher. One way or the other. But I thought it was a really cool series. I mean, it was just a great, solid, aggressive play on both sides. I thought Ebony and Sim, interestingly, improved game after game after game. It seemed like by the end of that series, they were stronger and steadier and more confident than they'd been at any other point in the series. So it was kind of cool to see that happen too. And I don't know where everyone else stood with this. I thought that was an upset. I thought for sure Madman Mirage were winning that series. I thought there was going to be too much coordination. I thought that they were probably slightly better players, like just head to head individually. So I was surprised by the outcome, and I think it was a really, really interesting series and kind of my favorite one of the set.
I think a lot of people look at Savage the way some look at Kanye with Doom. Ebony is a solid player, and Savage Sim, he's every day, every game he plays, a little bit, but he's not quite up to that par.
Okay.
But I think you notice it in the match. Like you said, every match they just came together a little more. I think each match it was like Savage just learned, okay, they're running this. I almost dodged it the last hit. If I time it just a second longer, it'll miss. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's the case, but watching it just feels like that's what happened. In certain instinct, in certain aspects.
Yeah, I agree. Savage, he definitely plays a role on that team, and when they're able to get it, that grind out play style can be very effective if they're able to execute it correctly, and they are very practiced at it, and so sometimes they're able to pull it off. We saw Madman and Mirage really heavily rely on the double bundle blaster combo several times. And sometimes it worked, and other times I felt like they weren't able to put down the necessary pressure to overwhelm the defenses. And we saw that on Refinery and on City.
They used it on Sandal and I as well on Palace, and it worked quite well.
Yeah, it's definitely a good combo. I have to admit to being a fan of it. My previous partner, Davio PDDCM, often ran Bundle Blaster as well, and I liked having it run with me. I was a big fan of it. Is there anything else anybody wants to touch on the series? Anything you want to say about it yourself, Mirage?
Yeah, so I'm gonna add a couple things. So the panel match, always super fun. Like that Scream of Evil deck, like we both actually have one of those. And we don't run them at the same time, obviously, because we'd be destroying ourselves. But we definitely love running it. It is fun to run. Um, what else? The city match actually like was going really well. Like Nathan said, like it was going well in the beginning, and then I got pushed hard with a railgun and sword, I think it was, in my spawn. And once I went down, like you said, like there was just no way Madman could get over to me. It was going to be a long pickup for sure. Um, it was a little frustrating because I know we did have the start that would have won that game, but I couldn't do anything about the pressure on me, and I wasn't able to get Madman to. Or I don't know if he didn't see it, but he was focusing on the top on Sandal, and I was too. But then I couldn't handle the railgun combo down below. The refinery match was fun. And I didn't even think, like, honestly, I didn't even think about the time really too much. I looked at it once and I was like, you know what, like, I wonder if I can do this. I just didn't know. I honestly don't know exactly how that works as far as like, if do we both have to be alive and when the time runs out in order for us to get the draw, or is it
Yeah.
just okay? Yeah. So, like, I don't know that I guess I could have maybe made it to Madman and picked him up. I just wasn't exactly sure. Um, where he was, or I didn't really want to keep trying to run from that sword. So I don't know. There's a few Dance of Deaths there that I thought could have hit, but it just missed.
Yeah, well, it was definitely a really fun series to watch. I think anybody who hasn't seen it should definitely go and see it in its entirety. I've had a little bit of it here playing in the background while we've been talking, but we'll go ahead and move
And
on.
Daffy. One last thing, Daffy, you just trade secret. What's in the George Michael deck? You can't know. Sorry.
Oh, it's a
Shout out to
trade
Daffy.
secret. There we go. All right, so I guess have we done? We did Darcia and Nathan already, right?
No, I don't think so. Did we?
That was the
That was
first
winning?
match.
Okay, that was the first one we've done. All right, so I guess that takes us next to the meme off here. Oh, geez, we lost Nathan.
I do have notes for this one if you want.
Yeah, go ahead and take this one, Mirage. Looks like Nathan just rejoined.
So we're talking about the Bregan Monkey versus Silent Go Tricks match, the jackpot
Yeah, use the
versus
proper
Rockshot
name.
match.
Jackpot
sure.
versus Rockshot.
Yeah, for sure. That was what this. You saw a lot of it throughout every map. It looked like. It started in Palace. You Reagan got a real quick start on Palace in that game, but then it was countered by Silent and Goat's double Rian came at you, and Jackpot within the first minute. So it lived up to his name real quick there.
This time it was actually Monkey with Jackpot on Palace.
Oh, was it?
Enough. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, there was definitely a time when like I think you died, and then right after you Silent died, you got picked up, but it was just too far of a run, I think, for Goat to get to Silent, which ended in you guys taking Palace.
Silent got picked up the first time, and then I killed him a second time.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was definitely a really fun one there on Palace.
that was a fun match. Yeah, Silent looked like a double quantum map, which led to a double violent change from you quick. With that memory lapse that you were talking about earlier, that you like to run with that violent change. Yeah, I don't know. That was a good match. Jackpot ended up winning Sign at the end. So, like Nathan was saying earlier, we didn't see the pop win on Sign.
We'll relive the moment.
Jackpot forever from those two. Those two guys.
So triggered.
Lane, we saw Trigger, or Tiger Strength and Rock Shot into the game super fast. That was a super quick aggression. Tiger Strength and Rock Shot kind of overpowered that match. And then in Refinery, you outlasted that Jackpot to win with the Tiger Strength and Rock Shot. It was a quick match too, but it was a good match. And I mean, I definitely liked the series. It was fun to watch.
Did you guys get to see that one too as well, Nathan, in Evolution?
I did. I was heartbroken on Sign, as I'm sure just you were. But you know, y'all really made a living meme out of it. I thought y'all were just joking around, trolling each other, and you guys literally both brought Jackpot Rock Shot matchup of a lifetime together.
There's no other way to do it.
If you're gonna go, you gotta go hard, right?
We're watching the part right now where I just rock shotted Silent 3 times until he was dead with Tiger Strength on Lane. That was a good one. Are you with us
Put
again,
up a hell of a
Nathan?
fight, though.
No, I don't. It shows him in here. I don't know if his mic is working currently. So, guess we'll go ahead and move on until he is back with the living. See, we have one last matchup then to talk about, and that is the Doomsday Kanye versus Guinan and Math series. And I forget, did you have this one, Evolution?
I can take this one if you want.
Sure.
So, we see Doom do his thing. High pressure. Takes a lot of the aggro. I guarantee that whenever I play Doom, my camera lock stays on Doom 75 or better of the time. And I know that has a lot to do with, I know that a lot of other players can probably attest to that as well. So when you get a player like Kanye who's pulling a support role, basically trying to back Doom and let him just do his Doom thing, it becomes almost easy to get away with some of the moves that you're trying to get away with. Not only are your opponents throwing up shields every 2 seconds trying to block Doom's moves, but they're also not even looking at you half. And I think that played an important role in the defeat of Geigen and Math. Doom's high pressure kept them busy, kept them occupied. And when they weren't defending themselves against Doom, they were looking through their arsenal to find a way to stop Doom. And then you got Kanye, who will roll in from behind and hit you with a dazzle or, whatever move he's using. They plant effectively. I know people have said it before. Doom is a very malleable player, and he can play with just about anyone because his style. It's easy to change, or it's easy to play with Doom. That's what I'm getting at. It doesn't matter what style you are; it just fits in with what he's doing. So, I don't think there was a very difficult transition for them to become such a threatening that they are. And people are discrediting Kanye on it, but if you look at those matches, he's getting in big hits, he's getting in power plays, he's getting in the right moves at the right time to allow an opening for Doom to make that blow, man. And it was rough. I feel for Geigen. He said that he had some personal stuff. He wasn't feeling well, I believe, and the match was kind of scheduled earlier than he would have liked. But even when that's all said and done, you can't take the win away, man. Doom and Kanye put it together. They did it fast and efficiently, and it looked good.
Yeah, I think without delving into anyone's personal issues, it was definitely a really fun match to watch. A lot of the gameplay was really good. I felt like Kanye did well on some of the early maps. I felt like he played well on Panorama and City, but he kind of fell off a little bit towards some of the later ones. On Refinery, he was doing pretty good, although Guinan and Math managed to bring it back and just had too much damage for them to handle. And then it was Lane where I was a little disappointed in Kanye for a bit. And then they brought it back on Sign, but Sign was a big Doom show there. Doom had a really strong showing. But I feel like Kanye really set a fast tone and had quicker starts, which is something we've wanted to see out of Kanye in previous rounds on the first 2 maps especially.
Yeah, and I'm not making excuses for anyone. He hasn't personally told me this, but if I was to guess as to why because Kanye doesn't, I've known him for a long, long time, as most know. He doesn't really have a play mode where in high profile matches like this, he doesn't really slow down. He's in it for blood. So if it were my opinion, I'd chalk it off more than likely to lack of map experience. He doesn't typically play the later maps very much.
That could be very possible, and I think that's still true for even some of the longest serving pros. There is a really high preference for some of those early maps like Palace and Highway and even City. And so a lot of those, sometimes even myself, sometimes I find myself questioning what arsenals do I have that actually work on, say Lane, for example. And so it's definitely a factor, I think, a lot of the time. And we saw in that series, Guinan playing the jumper, maybe he was a little uncomfortable this series. I noticed him taking a little bit more damage than we usually see him taking. He tends to usually play pretty clean as a female jumper, but maybe he had some of the other issues going on may have been a factor there. But the person I was really impressed with was Math, too. Math really stepped up in that series. And we saw a lot of times while Guinan would be absorbing the pressure, we'd see Math really doing damage. And even times like going 1v1 with Doom, and he would come out ahead in a lot of those trades with Doom 1v1, which I found really impressive.
Math is a very solid player, and he shows it every time he gets together. And a lot of times when you're paired up with such a top tier partner, you're gonna do well regardless. But I don't think that's the case with Math. I think his gameplay is the same no matter who he's playing with. It just, certain partners allow it to be shown more than others.
That's one possible explanation, but his level of play this tournament versus even the 1v1 tournament and the last tag tournament has been significantly better, I would say. Like the last tag tournament, he did not have a very good showing with Will Ryder. And the 1v1 tournament, he, had some really rough losses, even in groups versus Xanxus, and then dropped out in the semifinals in a fairly one-sided series as well. But I've been really impressed with him so far in this tag tournament, and I really look forward to, I think obviously both these teams are going to end up in playoffs. They're probably, in my opinion, right now, still the top 2 teams. I don't think there's any other team that has even remotely an argument for being top 2 with these two. And so I'm going to be really excited to see what is almost guaranteed to be a rematch towards semifinals or finals of the playoffs once we get there.
It's definitely going to be interesting, and Gagnon's going to come back looking for blood, as they say. And I'm not going to make a call this early in it, but if that rematch does happen, I think we're going to see either an upset or at least a lot closer of a match.
I don't know if you could call any outcome of these two teams up against each other an upset. They're both just so good. But we might see it go the other way next time. Last tournament, Guinan did take down Doom twice, and now Doom has taken the first series here. So we could see a reverse. We could see Doom continue the trend. It's definitely, if nothing else, what we can guarantee is that it will be fun and exciting.
There was this match was awesome. Like I hadn't chimed in yet at all. I know that Reborn was definitely looking forward to it because of Madman's comments about Doom and his greatest man ever to play Phantom Dust comment, pretty much, in his one-on-one interview. Reborn definitely wanted to play in this match. And it was a good match. Like, it definitely, I was like, oh crap, this is not going to end well. Like, Doom and Kanye took Pano and City like pretty well, and I was like, well, this is not going to be good. And then they came back from Refinery, and Reborn and Matt took that match. Giving Kanye some credit though, like neither one of you guys mentioned that sick as sword cancel that killed off Reborn at the end of City. That was a sick little sword cancel from.
Oh yeah,
from
I mentioned that in the podcast, and we did see it here while we were watching. I was going to point it out, but I didn't want to interrupt whoever was talking at the time. But yeah, that was a dirty little sword cancel. There was some good sword plays from Kanye. We saw Doomsday really running like almost like a screen, and just capturing all the attention, and Kanye really taking advantage with some of those nasty little shots, especially with the lightning sword, was really
Yeah.
effective.
yeah, the
That's what I
early
was saying
aggression.
earlier. You finally notice it, like it shows. It's starting to really show in Kanye his game how much improved.
Yeah, he's playing well with Doom. Like the early aggression from Doom definitely makes it nice for Kanye to be able to come in and help out and pick his targets correctly and put the pressure down while Doom's also putting pressure down and play come in and help out, and like that sword cancel was sick. And I thought it was funny though during that cast, Bregan, there was like 2 times that Dooms took some damage, and both times like it sounded like you were surprised that he got hit. Like it was just funny to hear, like, wow, Doom took some damage there.
Well, that might just be my own experience bleeding through playing against Doom. Like other players, I'd be like, okay, I've got this guy lined up for a flame sword, and I'm gonna hit him for 3 damage. I'm following Doom, and like every time I manage to hit him, I'm just surprised.
Yeah, it definitely came across in City in particular. Like there was like I think 2 instances when Doom took some damage, and it was funny to hear the cast.
I think
On
that's
that.
been a lot of people's experience, though, and
Oh yeah, I agree.
we're talking about it in a positive way, but I think most people's experiences include a lot of profanity and
Frustration
being
and
upset
salt.
that he didn't get hit by something.
Oh yeah, salt.
I guess I've just played with him enough at this point that I've had to come to expect to not hit him with things that I feel like I should hit him with.
Yeah, I saw him jump some things, and I'm like, okay, well, if you can actually jump those things, maybe I'll go back to jumping.
Yeah, he's very good. He's played very well so far. Definitely starting to look like the Doomsday of old, and I'm excited to see how it plays out towards the end of the tournament. But we can go ahead and I guess that takes care of our round 3 recap. So we'll move into predictions for round 4. I'm going to switch over to our graphic now. Pull this up here. So I guess you guys want to start at the bottom with the matchups starting towards the bottom, then move our way up?
I actually think the graphic that you posted is not the correct one.
Should be.
Go ahead and call them out then, and I'll just
Okay.
go off of what you say.
So the first matchup will actually be yours, Mirage. It's going to be Affin and Orange Baby versus Madman and Mirage. What are your thoughts on that one, Evolution?
I think it's him. I mean, Affin and Orange, they haven't had a great showing. I see a lot of mistakes. I'm not sure if those mistakes are being capitalized on in between matches where they're learning from the experience. But they need to, because they're in for a tough fight. Madman and Mirage damn near took a win from us, and they've done so to every opponent that they've played so far. And at the same time, I'm trying to tell Affin and Orange what they need to do to have a chance at winning this. I also want to say to Mirage, you and Madman need to get some more game time in, because a lot of those 2-3s that you guys had would have been 3-2s in your favor or 3-1s in your favor had you guys had the time in and practiced. I know that doesn't fall all on you, but I think that you guys are going to 3-0, possibly 3-1 them, pending they don't step their game up. But if they do step their game up, you might have another fight on your hands if you and Madman don't get some game time in.
Well, this is definitely the issue this tournament for Madman and I. Like, we honestly have the only games we've played together have been our tournament games. So there's definitely that issue this tournament for us. And it's something that we've talked about working on. I think that we're honestly probably mathematically out of playoffs at this point, even though we have like 2-3, but they're all losses. So I don't know. We might get janky.
I know there was a 1-3 team that squeaked their way into playoffs last time. It's actually Monkey and Silver, I believe. They were 3-3 or 1-3. So maybe with some mathematical voodoo, if certain teams have certain scores, it might still be possible. But I'm not 100% sure myself. But as far as this match, I think Affin and Orange Baby need to be ready for the quick setup and for Bundle Blaster if they want to have a chance. But the problem is I don't think they'll be ready for it. So I think also it'll probably be a pretty rough series for them. I'm going to predict an even 3-0 unless they manage to hang the right environmental to actually shut you guys down in one of the matches.
Yeah, I would just say don't be surprised if you see purple come out in full force.
Ooh. I would love to see some purple out of you guys again. So I guess our next matchup then is Darcia and War Machine versus Daffy and Filthy. What are your thoughts on that one, Mirage?
This should be a good game. I think Daffy and Filthy have been playing well together. I think they got some tough matchups early on in the tournament for sure. I do think that they'll take this from Darcia and War Machine. But I think it's going to be a close game. We're getting into Swiss, and I'm thinking 3-2. But I think Daffy and Filthy definitely take this one.
Yeah. What about you, Evolution? What are some of your thoughts on that one?
Daffy and Filthy. I haven't gotten to play Darcia and War Machine yet, but Daffy and Filthy were a powerhouse. I mean, it was. Oh, I wouldn't say, Murder and Gagnon powerhouse from our last tournament, but they gave us a fight every round. I mean, there was nothing where even one of the rounds, it looked like they were gonna end up winning that match, and we got lucky with a comeback. But they come fast and they come prepared. A lot of defenses, a lot of turbulence, race for all the jank. And they come packing some heavy hitting attacks. So like Darcia and War Machine are gonna need to, put in the prep time once again. And I think it's gonna be a 3-0 for Daffy and Filthy.
Interesting. I think personally, I feel like Darcia and War Machine's jank has been pretty good. And if Daffy and Filthy don't have the right read, if they're not keeping up on it, I feel like they could pull off a win here. I would have to say, if they're paying attention, Daffy and Filthy win this series. But if not, I think that Darcia and War Machine could pull out a 3-2. So I'll be interested to see that one, how that one plays out. I feel like round 4 gets really fun because you get to see, at least in most scenarios, a lot of the teams playing have a lot of parity. And so you get to see some really close matches in round 4. And one thing that Nathan has typed to me, it sounds like he's not going to be able to return due to some technical difficulties. But one thing we failed to mention was that Kamikaze Mario and Some Poor Choices last round were going to face Pop Crank and Unstoppable Gur. But Pop Crank and Unstoppable Gur were unable to complete their matchup and have since dropped from the tournament. So Kamikaze Mario and Poor Choices advance now with a forfeit win. And Nathan wanted to point out that Kamikaze, Mario, and Choices, as well as Savage Sim and Ebony, who had a forfeit win in round 2, actually have a pretty considerable advantage over some of the other mid-range teams. If either of or both of those teams win their fairly close fourth-round matches, they can then displace a lot of other 2-2 teams because they'll technically be kind of 2-1 with their Phantom win. So they actually have a pretty good spot right now. And our next matchup actually talks about Ebony Scarface and Savage Sim versus Jay and Murder Mastodon. So what are some of your initial thoughts on that one, Mirage?
And that was, you said, Jay, Mastodon, and who are they fighting? I'm sorry.
Jay and Murder Mastodon versus Ebony Scarface and Savage Sam.
That should be a good match. Jay and Murder are obviously top opponents, for sure. But I think Ebony and Savage are gonna come with those shields. Like that's their MO. That multiple race shield 7-8 shield arsenals. That's their MO, and they'll try to grind out the games as much as possible. I think Jay and Murder are gonna still take it. I think they should take it 3-1. But they're going to be long matches. I don't feel like it's going to be quick matches. I don't think you're going to see them end in under 5 minutes. Any of the games. But yeah, I think Jay and Murder take that.
Yeah, I think it might be a closer series than people expect. Jay and Murder, definitely one of the teams that were pegged as one of the top teams, have been in a rough spot. Did have a close series versus Xanxus, and Xanxus took a really rough loss to Doom as well. So they're actually 1-2 right now, and their record might not reflect so much their standing as it normally would have due to a pretty hard set of opponents. But Ebony and Savage are not, anybody to be ignored either. Ebony is a player that's improved a lot over the last couple of months, has a very distinct play style, very erase heavy, and I feel like that does play against Murder's style a little bit, because at least in my experience playing Murder, he can run out of attacks a little bit faster than some of the other top tier players. And if he runs into that and he's not ready for that level of race, this guy who relies a lot on nature and Kai and Psycho doesn't bring as much of the reincarnation as some other players, might run into some problems there versus them. So if Ebony and Savage can effectively pull off those grind out strategies, they could pull up a win here and have actually a pretty strong placing in playoffs, given that they could place, I think, maybe as high as 4th or 5th with a win here. What are some of your thoughts on this one, Evolution?
I've said it before, I have quite the history with Ebony and Savage, and I know Murder and Jay are going to be they're very aware of the type of gameplay to expect out of them. And I think they're going to be prepared. Not to take it away from Ebony and Savage, but I just, I don't think that they're going to be able to handle this caliber of a team, let alone a pissed off this caliber of a team. So I'm going to have to give it to Jay and Murder 3-0.
Jay and Murder 3-0. You want to give me a numeric prediction yourself there, Mirage?
I think 3-1, Jay Murder.
3-1 Jay and Murder. Next match on the docket will be one of my favorites for this round. Gotrix and Silent 79, the jackpot duo, the Hardy Boys themselves, versus Kamikaze Mario and Some Poor Choices.
I think this should be a fun match. I think Kamikaze and Some Poor Choices are coming off a bye, right? And
technically, it was a forfeit, not a bye.
Yeah. But so they didn't get to play this round. But I'm sure they're still putting in the time. I'm sure they're putting in the prep work. And I definitely think they're going to come off. And I think it's going to be a close match. I just don't know that jackpot and those shenanigans are going to carry them through in this match. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm thinking 3-2 Kamikaze and Poor Choices. It's going to be a tough match, I think.
I think it's definitely got to be at least weighted in the favor of Kamikaze Mario and Choices, as they tend to get more play time. But I feel like Silent and Goat just kind of have that X factor. Like, they show up. Sometimes they have this sloppy series against a lower placed team that you wouldn't expect. Like their round 1 match, just some of their play looked really bad. But then Silent just shows up and he dumps damage. He really does. Gotrix is a very good player who manages the tempo of a match, but Silent, if he's not focused early, like he's almost always got like a heavy hitting Fire Gehenna, a Psycho Spear, his iconic Jackpot, and he just dumps damage on people. It's really impressive to watch. What are some of your thoughts on that one, Evolution?
I think this is going to be my favorite match of round. I really like all four of the players. Uh, I got a lot of respect for all four as well, and I can't honestly give you. If I had to make a prediction, if I absolutely had to, I'm going to give it uh, a 3-2-1 in the favor of Mario and Poor Choices, only because of this past few Swiss rounds where Gotrix is making mistakes here and there that he doesn't typically make, whereas Mario is stepping up to be a impressive jumper, and then you see Silent, like you said, laying out damage to try and back those mistakes up. Well, Poor Choices isn't really having to do that. He's keeping up the tempo right with Mario. So, pending what's previously happened, I'm gonna give it to Poor Choices and Mario. Now, if Gotrix steps up, that's a different ballgame. But as of right now, it's where I stand.
I think that's also kind of the similar sentiment for me. Gotrix is a very storied player who at times is, like a top 3, top 5 jumper in the game, and we just haven't been seeing that same level of play out of him in this tournament. I mean, he placed 5th in the last tag tournament too. They had a strong showing there. But I just haven't seen that level of play out of him recently, and if we can see him step it up, I feel like Silent, for all the game time that he doesn't get in, still shows up and plays just about how you would expect Silent to play. And if we can see Goat step it up, I feel like that would be the difference maker. But given current results, I think I would also have to side with Mario and Poor Choices for the existing synergy and being a little bit more on the same page right now. Takes us into our next matchup. Another one here. It's unfortunate Nathan dropped out on us, so we can't trash talk him right to his face on this series, but it's going to be Nathan and Wolf versus Xanxus and Zexus. So, who wants to take bets on whether it's less than 10 minutes?
I mean, I'll take the over on that.
You gonna take the over on it? What about you, Evolution?
I already know how it's gonna be, man. I ain't even gonna. There's no payout on my bet.
No payout. Well, okay. I'll play the advocate for Nathan and Wolf. I've memed on them a little bit here, but Nathan and Wolf are a team that everybody knows from back in the day. We've said it 100 times. They're one of the most storied partnerships in Phantom Dust. They've come in a little bit rusty, but they have been putting in some more game time, and they've slowly gotten better as the tournament has gone on. And I feel like one of the things that Xanxus and Zexus haven't really been tested on in this tournament or the last is a really good, hard jank playing team. They never really played the Sandal Evolution. Well, we did see them. Evolution, you did it to them in round 1. I guess I'm already, talking out of turn. You did it to them in round 1 of the last tournament, right? With some of those
combos. I was super nervous about them because, I'd only intermingled with them then. I wasn't really, playing with them all the time like I do now. But I had just heard the rumors of this that was Beast, and, we were going to get meshed. So I thought, okay, well, they're both dual cartwheelers. What can I do to mess them up? And I kept thinking, and I remember asking you and Gagnon, I came to you for a combo idea, but I initially went to Gagnon and I said, as a cartwheeler, what moves can you not get away from? And we broke them all down, and I started listing them all out on paper, and I had this big old notebook full of notes on what moves are strong where, and I think I came up initially with Still Moment and God, I can't remember what it was, but I brought it to your attention. You're like, well, why don't you try? Didn't you say Gravity Press at first? And then I was like, wait, what about Disintegrate?
No, I just said Disintegrate. That
Oh,
was
did you? Okay.
yeah. I was the one that was on the disintegrate train. I was really enjoying it myself at the time.
Yeah, it definitely carried weight in that match because me and Esper started off on a 2-0 lead on Xenxus and Zexus, and I feel like we could have taken that even to this day, but because we had them on the ropes, they'll even tell you, they were thinking they were about to lose, and I think we got comfortable. I think I think the pressure, initial pressure, was what got us that 2-0 lead, and then once we got it, we got comfortable and thought easy win and fell apart.
Well, yeah, and
So
the throwback matches aside, we've seen they don't get tested on that much, and when they were, they didn't respond to it well. I think we saw Guinan do a paralyzed disintegrate combo versus them in that tournament as well. And Nathan and Wolf are, some of the most storied and dirty and well prepared jank build players out there. And I feel like they know their head is on the chopping block here. I think they don't make playoffs if they lose. If they maybe if they lose 3-2, they still make the cut just barely. And so I'm really interested just to see how hard they go in on these guys. And like it could be, I know we've had some in the chat here going on, purple for life, and I'd be really interested to see if they try to play it straight or if they just kind of accept that playing straight versus Xenxus and Zexus doesn't get the W and they just go for the full plethora of rudeness. I don't think
see,
that's
the
what'll
thing
happen,
is,
but it'd definitely be fun if it did.
the thing is about rudeness against Xenxus and Zexus, that rudeness better come quick, because I promise you, one of them is in your spawn within 30 seconds of the match, and it's not fun when they're there because they don't go away.
That's true. That is very true. So we got two matchups left. Then we've actually got yours next, Evolution. It's you and Sandal versus Math and Guinan. Mirage, over under on the 10 minutes.
I don't know. That's tough. Under.
Oh, under Mirage.
Going under.
No
I think
faith.
Reborn is gonna be mad. I don't know. I think it's gonna be a tough match. I think that Evolution and Sandal played us tough. Like when we played, obviously it was 3-2, and they got us, um, and they've been playing good. Framed us, and they got a lot of hours. They've been playing. They've been putting in time, and I know Evolution doesn't like to be called a mad scientist, but they and him and Sandal both fall into that category, and I think they're gonna be ready.
I think after today, I'll willingly accept the role of mad scientist.
I was gonna say, like, you have to at this point because Evolution is still been approaching me for. I'm not gonna give anything away, but it seems like every time he talks about like how he wants to play more straight, and then he'll shoot me this idea over like, what do you think about this? And I'm just like, come on, that's absolutely ridiculous. Like,
yeah, no, and he'll post an LFG in the chat and be like, I need 2 people to come test something. I need this or that, and you're like, okay, what's he putting together right now? And I don't know, like I definitely think they're gonna come prepared. Reborn and better be ready. Him and his partner better be ready because they're definitely gonna be prepared, and that's something that you cannot say or give them credit for. Like Evolution and they're just gonna come prepared, and I think it's gonna help. Like I mean, I'll change. I'm not going under on the 10 minute. I definitely over, but it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a good match. It should be fun to watch.
I guess 2 points. I'll continue on the one I was talking about. It's gotten to the point where me and Evolution talk, and he'll pitch me an Arsenal idea, and I'll say whether or not I think it's viable or if it's too Sandal. And 9 times out of 10 lately, everything he sent me, I've said it's too Sandal. So he's definitely the mad scientist. You can't complain about that narrative anymore.
However, I'm not going to go into detail because if Sandal and I decide to use it, if we decide to use it, ladies and gentlemen of the viewers, I promise you, mark my words now, I promise you, I will give you something you've never seen before.
He's going to use Phantom Dust.
Strong words out of Evolution. He's definitely going to play the game Phantom Dust, but whether or not he uses the skill remains to be seen. Maybe he'll, who knows? I mean, he said something we've never seen, so maybe we'll see one of those environmentals that nobody ever likes to think about. But the other point I was going to touch on here is Math and Guinan still are, for me, a top 2 team, almost exactly tied with Doomsday and Kanye. And if I had to choose a round where I was going to have to face Math and Guinan, it sure wouldn't be the one after they just lost to Doom. Like, you know they're coming in angry. You know they're coming in with a vengeance. And so that would be my worst moment, at least here for Evolution and Sandals. Like, you're coming in, they're going to be coming in angry. They're going to come in and they're going to hit hard.
Yeah. Tell me about
My thing is, going back to that environmental comment by you, Bregan, I think that Orange Baby has played every environmental.
You know, it's Orange Baby. I just literally said his name. But Orange Baby may literally have played every environmental on the list by the end of this tournament in a tournament match.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that's just the way he plays. So I guess that moves us on. If anybody has anything, does anybody have anything else they want to touch on before we move off of that series? All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Gagnon, Math. Take it easy. I'm a cheap date. If you have manners and you're polite, I'll put out. You don't have to take it from me, okay? I'm gonna say that.
Okay. Evolution with the plethora of confidence here. So I guess that moves us on to our last matchup then, which is my own, and I don't get to comment too much, though I might have to add some things in. So I'll let you guys take it away.
You want to go ahead first, Mirage? Or you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay, so there's 2 sides of this. Kanye and Doom are a new team. Monkey and Bregan are a new team. Kanye and Doom, however, have played hard teams and come ahead. Monkey and Bregan so far have played hard teams and barely come ahead. No offense, but I'm just stating facts.
That was very fair.
And I think that that comes down to style that we've seen from teams before and now. Nothing's changed with Doom and Kanye. Kanye's still playing straightforward. He doesn't like the jank. He's still playing your vanilla standard issue arsenals. Doom's still playing his standard issue Doom, Hyper Kick, Hyper Kai Bullet, Psycho Spear. Monkey and Bregan are trying new things, and at the same time, they're also trying to get their synergy going while trying new things. So, I'm thinking here that, you got to take a look at what's happened so far and say, okay, that did not work, or it barely worked. We need to just go back to what we know and do best. And I think that would be the difference maker. But this is tough. Because they had a great showing against Gagnon and Math, and that was my number 1 team pick from the get-go. So, I'm going to have to go Doom Kanye on this, but I'm not going to... I think it's going to be a tough one for him, just like the last, and I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-2 Doom Kanye.
All right, so a couple questions here. Bregan, who gets picked here?
Doom and Kanye pick. We have direction.
Okay, so... Doom and Kanye 9-2-1 overall, and Bregan and Monkey 9-4 overall. That's pretty much even in my book. That's pretty much 9-3 and 9-4 as far as I'm concerned. But it's going to be an interesting match. I think it's going to be a close match. I agree with the 3-2 in Doom's favor. But I'm interested to see Palace. I'm assuming that we'll end up in Palace eventually. And you guys are undefeated in Palace right now, Bregan, and they only have 1 game on Palace right now, and it was a draw. So I feel like that's going to be a good match to watch and see how Doom and Kanye handle you guys on Palace. And I think that City, like you guys have won 2 on City. You didn't play it in the third round, and they've won 3 in the first 3 rounds on City. And I think that's going to be that should be fun to watch. If you guys end up at Palace and City in this match, like those, I think those are going to be good, hard fought matches. And I definitely think that you guys can pull it out with a little preparation that's specifically targeted towards that team. But it should be a good game.
Yeah, there is something I want to add to my comment, and you kind of furthered that as well. You said, God, I can't remember exactly. Anyways, I know what my comment was. I can't remember exactly what you said in that pertained to it, but I said that Doom plays typical Doom. Hyper kick, hyper kai bullet, psycho spear, and Kanye plays standard issue. I think that comment right there is going to be what changes, because I know Bregan puts a lot of thought and time into his opponents as well, and even I've noticed. I've already planned ahead if we ever get to play Doom and Kanye. If you ever watched the previous videos when he's going through his arsenals, a lot of them only have about 6 attacks, maybe 7. And stuff like that, I take notice to, and I think to myself, okay, well, maybe I'll just add an extra shield. Little things like that are huge game changers. The only thing that needs to be the glue that's going to bring that together is getting the timing down, because Doom will 9 times out of 10 out time you. His psycho spears come out of nowhere half the time, right in the middle of you casting an attack. So I mean, if you can really get the tempo going and maybe get Doom on tilt a little bit, I don't even know if that's possible. I might have to lean more in Bregan's favor on that if that happens. But Ebony and Savage managed to take a draw from Doom's notorious best map with erase shields. It's got to tell you something.
Well, let's just say that last time we met on Palace, I showed him what's what. But a few things that I would add. So 2 things I would touch on is you kind of talked about both teams' record coming in, and I'm just going to talk in the third person like I'm not involved in this matchup. I feel like Doom and Kanye come in with a much stronger schedule and a much stronger score in their 3-0. And I feel like me and Monkey, you may have even heard me at the end of my last matchup just saying we have had some of the sloppiest games and the sloppiest play, and we have kind of slogged our way through and stumbled into a 3-0 here. And out of the teams that are currently ranked top 2, I feel like one of them deserves it, and the other one has yet to prove they deserve it. The other thing I would touch on, too, is just Monkey's play in general. Because a lot of the talk ends up being kind of like the Bregan versus Doom. But I think it's worth talking about Monkey as well. Is a very good mechanical player, and it feels like that team, my team, still speaking kind of in the third person here, that team is streaky. Like when they're on, they do really well. And whenever they kind of start bickering and arguing, you start to see things fall apart a bit. But they have shown that, after a match where things have fallen apart, they can get things back together. Whereas when you watched my games in the previous tournament, as soon as we lost a game, we were pretty much out. It was either 3-0 or bust. And so we have seen a little bit better mental fortitude in being able to recover series where they've taken a map loss. So that in itself is an improvement. But we've seen that team try out a lot of things, and a lot of it hasn't worked out. And so I have to heavily favor Doom and Kanye in this series right now if I were a third party looking in.
Right. And that's true what you said. Bregan, Monkey, emotions are your guys' weakness. If you guys let them get the better of you, it's going to be your downfall.
It's that Kanye's got that global taunt, with that laugh. It just tilts you.
It does. And that's funny. God, it's not funny now that I think about it. It's really true. Like, for a person who has tough skin, he knows how to get through it. And he doesn't even have to do much. It's his laugh. You're right. Just that giggle, and it's already in your head.
It's true.
This mother effer.
Well, I've got a few last topics for us here to cover before we end this. We'll move through these pretty quick because we've actually kind of gone pretty long for what I'd planned for this. So for round 3, who is your MVP? What player?
Mm.
What do you
Out
got
of
for me,
all the
Mirage?
matches,
I don't know. I mean, I like Kanye for this. I think he's playing his role in that team. I think he's doing well. I think the synergy's there. I think he's focusing and his targets correctly and playing good with Doom. I mean, everyone says that it's easy to play with Doom, but you still have to pick your spots and play well. I mean, there's a few times when like you said, Bregan, there was some couple matches when you're like, oh man, like I wish he would have done this a little bit different or whatever. But I think that he's playing well in that matchup, and it's got to be tough. I mean, there's got to be pressure there on him that hey, I'm playing with Doom, like, and all these teams are coming after us every single match, so everyone wants to be prepared for us, and I think he's handling it pretty well, and that sword cancel was sick, intentionally or not. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to get his way in. I don't know if anybody's talked to him about if that was an intentional sword cancel, but
that's my
either
brother,
way,
man.
it
I
was
talked
sick.
to him about it. He did that intentionally. He was looking for it too.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it was a hell of a play, and Bregan called it out as soon as it happened on the cast, and it was nice. So I mean, I give it to Kanye on this in round 3.
You figure out who you
I
got,
hate
Evolution?
Yeah, and I hate to agree with people in podcasts. I always like to be different and give a little variety, but no bias here whatsoever. This is purely out of, gameplay. Kanye, everyone says it's easy to play with Doom, but you know what? You disappoint Doom, it's not so easy. It weighs heavy on your heart, any good player. And on top of that, being as they're the top dogs right now, they're
Evolution
playing
speaks from experience here. He does this every day.
being as they're playing the top dogs here, they're having to. It's easy to play with Doom. However, look at the opponents you're having to play against. So not only are you worried about disappointing the arguably the best player on the game, but you're doing so while playing against arguably the second, third, or even arguably another first top player on the game. I'm stumbling a little bit here, but I know what I'm trying to say. Kanye is the underdog in a little fish in a tank full of sharks, and he's keeping up. Is what I'm getting at.
He had big shoes to fill by stepping into that position. He really did.
Yes.
And I feel like he's done a good job of that. And while I admire Kanye's play, I think mine would have to be somebody I've already praised and given accolades to in this podcast already. It's got to be Math for me. Did not have strong showings in previous tournaments, in my opinions, but the guy has really turned up in this series. And as we saw a bit here in the podcast, and if you go and you watch the series, like I can count multiple times where we're watching from Guinan's perspective, and he may be taking a lot of damage or doing well, depending on which match you're watching. But Math was the one skirmishing with Doom in most of the games. And almost every time when they 1v1 skirmished, Math would come out with 20 health or more. Not more, but 20 health or high health versus a Doom who would limp away. And like that's impressive to me. Not just once, not just twice, but multiple times. Math stepping up and winning early trades versus one of the best mechanical players to ever touch the game. And it's been really impressive for me to see him step up because we had a lot of questions about him. He stepped up against Xanxus and Zexus, arguably the primary carry there. Had a very impressive series versus Doom and Kanye. And when paired with Guinan, the sky is the limit. I think this team can go really far, and I feel like their ceiling is really high as they continue to play together. I've been really impressed with the progress Math has made.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely been playing well. It's hard for we're talking about round 3 MVP in particular, and it's just I don't know, it's tough to give it to somebody that lost in the round. For me personally, but I agree with you, and your points definitely are strong in Math's favor, and overall as the tournament overall, I definitely think that Math has been performing well.
Very good. So next question. Who has won round 4 for you? As in, gotten a lucky draw or is now a shoo-in for playoffs, etc. Who's your round 4 winner?
Murder and Jay. I had to really think about that one too.
And I feel like after the tough start they've had, I feel like that's definitely one of the better draws they could have had for round 4 to give them that decider match to try and make it back in. I think they need a 3-0 or a 3-1 to qualify for playoffs, but they got it. They were given a team that they have a strong chance of pulling that off against. So I think that's definitely a good call. What about you, Mirage?
I think Kamikaze and Poor Choices coming into this round. Since they are 1-1 and they had that de facto win, I think that if they can get this win and finish the tournament at 2-1 in the Swiss, that they'll still squeak in, and I think they got a good matchup to do that in this round. So yeah, we'll see how that turns out.
Gotta say, for me, it's Doom and Kanye. Actually, they've been slogging their way through, and they've had some of the toughest matchups they could have in round 2 and round 3, and on the other half of the bracket, it feels like somebody just gave them an underhand pitch here, and they could just easily home run this one if me and Monkey aren't able to show up. So like, it sucks to trash talk yourself, but it's kind of true, as we haven't really been tested by any of the other top teams, and Doom and Kanye have looked fantastic against the other top teams, while we have struggled against some of the mid-table teams. So I feel like they've got an easy lock for first place. Like, if they'd had to play Guinan again or Xanxis or somebody like that here for round 4 in order to fight out for first place, like, I feel like that'd be a much tougher matchup. But I feel like they have a super easy lock for first place going into playoffs.
Here's the scary part about that too. Okay. Our last opponents were you and Monkey. Very tough team. This round opponents are Geigen and Math. Extremely tough team. If we etch in one win on Geigen and Math, I believe, no pun intended, I did the math. If we get one win, we make playoffs. That means we're in last place. Guess who we get to play in the first round of playoff, or of the elimination? Doom and Kanye.
Yeah, but that'll be fun for you guys.
So it has not been a tough road, and you say you played these mid-tier teams and they were close games. That makes me feel worse, because not you saying I'm a mid-tier team. I already know that, but it's like we can't catch a break. We're playing, my previous predictions of 4th place we just played. Now we're about to play our 2nd place, and we're probably going to end up playing our 1st place predictions as well. So it's crazy. It sucks.
It's a rough road in Swiss for some teams, while some others have coasted. Out of all the matchups we've watched so far, though, what's been your biggest upset of the first 3 rounds? Which matchup was the biggest upset?
For me personally, I would have to. Oh God. Are we talking about individual map, or are we talking
Match.
about
Actual
okay.
match win?
Okay. Well, give me a minute then. Go ahead, Mirage.
Can I say every match that Madman and I played? Those 3-2s are tough to swallow at the end of the day. No, but I mean, I don't know. The biggest upset, like, is that what you asked? The one that we thought was going to be? I mean, I don't know. I think that, like, I honestly think that Doom Kanye win over Reborn was an upset. Like, I had Reborn going into that match, like, and it ended up being 3-2. And Doom is who Doom is, and Kanye's been playing really great with Doom. But I mean, just the hours and the time put in by Reborn. I thought that was an upset. Like, I would have given that. I wasn't in the last podcast, but I probably would have given that 3-2 to Reborn.
I agree. I feel like that was definitely against how I thought the match was going to go. I don't remember what I actually gave the prediction in the podcast, but I felt like Math and Guinan had the synergy, the hours, and the pedigree, at least recent pedigree, that they should have been favored there. And like I said before earlier, like I'm really excited to see this almost guaranteed eventual matchup because I struggle to see after the brutality with which Guinan and Math took down Xanxus and Zexus, I struggle to foresee a future where any team is able to beat either Guinan or Doomsday towards the finals.
I have sort of the same prediction, or excuse me, not prediction, but upset, but not quite the same. So, for me, it wasn't Doom and Kanye versus Geigen and Math. It was Doom and Kanye versus Murder and Jay. And the reason I say that is, Doom was a last minute and literally last minute. He got a hold of him on the Xbox mic. 20 minutes later, they were playing Ebony and Savage. Okay, so they got a draw the first round on Doom's best map. Highway, Doom was low health, very low, and they ended up getting the win, and they swept them from there out. Okay, but I expected more. They got the win, but I still expected more. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when they came into the next matchup against Jay and Murder, I was thinking to myself, okay, this is a tried and true team. This is two solid players, two scary players. And at the time, I was banking on Murder and Jay. I think that Doom and Kanye taking it was an upset for me because I guess that was the match where I really got to see the Doom that everyone remembers.
Yeah, for you that was the test. For you, that, and for everybody else that doesn't really know, like these newer players don't know Doom and who he is. These newer players probably know Kanye better than they know Doom. And for you, you've heard of Doom and you know who Doom is, but for you it was, can Doom come in last minute and play to
No,
the level that we expect him to?
I knew Doom from back then. That I wasn't debating on Doom coming in and doing his thing. I was debating on, can Kanye keep up? I mean, that's my brother, and I know how he plays, and he makes mistakes. And
Yeah, no, I was saying that you know who Doom is, but
oh yeah,
that was
yeah,
a test for you to see if
yeah,
the
right,
partnership's going to work out, and that's why you would have given it to those other two guys
right.
against them in the early on stages. Now, if they were playing next round, and you have seen Doom and Kanye do what they've done the first three rounds, there's no way that you have the same prediction for Jay and Murder for this.
Right.
Like if they were
That's
playing round 4.
right. That's why it's my upset. I wasn't banking on it, but it happened.
All right, so I guess last one we'll do just real quick. What is your favorite jank build or combo arsenal that you've seen so far in the first 3 rounds of Swiss?
Evolution Sandal hit Madman and I with the level baton jank on Highway, and that was unfortunate.
No one saw it though, unfortunately.
I know nobody saw it, but it was nice, and it sucked at the same time.
Am I allowed to say my favorite is our own build? That unfortunately hit only me. Somehow the timing was off on that first hit. We practiced it for weeks and it worked every single time. But we were running a Chill Breeze Disintegrate, and you can jump the Chill Breeze, but most people don't. Oddly enough. And we were banking on Madman being a cartwheeler. I don't know where he was on the map. If I don't know what happened. It's hit every cartwheeler we've ever done, and somehow the timing was off because I guess through the disintegrate. I don't remember if I disintegrated or Chill Breeze. Anyways, the timing was slightly off by about a millisecond, and it was just enough for me to get hit by it before I fell off the cliff. And if apples were oranges, that match would have went a different way, but I got hit hard and fast after I got hit to 0 aura.
I think for me, I actually really enjoyed the double bundle blaster. I felt like Madman and Mirage have had excellent setup with it. The damage potential and map coverage is fantastic. I feel like sometimes they didn't always succeed in executing it, even though they had the setup. I feel like they didn't always have the right map placement in order to execute the combo. But when we did see them do it, like their Palace match against Ebony and Savage, it was just brutal. It set up fast, it broke through shields, and they were dumping damage with it, and I really enjoyed that one personally.
Mirage here and I had quite the Palace experience, didn't we, Mirage?
Oh my god, that Palace game, that one, they didn't see that one either. That Palace
Yeah.
match was intense. I wish we had the video for that Palace match.
I think both teams combined had at least 6 or 7 kills.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Was it the double
I
bundle
mean-
blaster once again?
They ran
yeah,
double bundle
probably.
blaster, and I ran a sword rush, and Sandal ran a mid-range rush. So he was using Arc of Fire, Bullet of Fire, Fire Gehenna. And we would get one of them down. Like I'd kill Madman, and it was like Mirage is going for the pickup. He's at like 5 health, right? And it was like, oh, the worst luck. I would be a noob and throw a flame sword right as Sandal is fire gehenning, and I'd knock him down for 3 damage instead of the full 6, and they'd get a pickup. And it just went back and forth like that the entire time. I mean, that was. I think both teams were respawning with 3 health each.
Yeah, that was probably the most intense map that I've played this tournament. It was definitely intense. Like, that was edge of your seat, heart pounding like match
And it
right
didn't
there.
get recorded.
I know, and I mean, it should be. Samuel needs to call Mixer and yell at them until he can get his archive.
Mhm.
Well, if
It
it
was
ever does get it
insane
back
match.
up, I can add it into the videos, maybe redo that whole thing. But until then, I feel like one thing I would like to add, we have coverage, even though we only got like 3 of the maps from your series, we've had at least some form of video from, I think, every single series played so far. Either, spectating a stream or people recording and sending me the recordings. And that's been awesome.
Yeah,
I'm
I
loving
agree.
the coverage. I'm loving the videos. It's really fun to be able to do the cast and commentary, and I think it'd be really fun as a community member to be able to see not just how the results are, but to actually watch these matches and the teams progress. And I think that's been great. And I'd like to thank everybody that does watch. Thank you guys as well that have been here tonight for this podcast, and for everybody that's been involved in organizing and putting this together. It's been a lot of fun so far. We're at about the halfway point, and I'm really excited to see how the rest of this tournament pans out and how round 4, gets us our top 8, because there's a lot of teams on the outside looking in who are hungry and just on the verge with a win here that could make their way in. And so that it's going to be a lot of fun. And I, again, thank you for being here, Evolution and Mirage.
Thanks for
Of
having us,
course.
Bregan.
Yeah. Thanks.
And we will catch you guys next week after the Swiss rounds are over. Thanks, everybody, and good night.